This is the Russian-Georgian border, one of a few routes open for Russians escaping the so-called partial mobilization announced by Vladimir Putin to feed his fight in Ukraine. Thousands of military-aged men, long days and nights of waiting just to get to the checkpoint. No toilets, no food, no clean water. That's the price many are willing to pay to avoid being called up.
Many people are being taken away, even those who, according to announced categories, are not fit to fight. Thus, last Saturday I left and we began to move to the border by car. As a result, there were a lot of checkpoints inside the country where they tried not to let me leave through, not let me pass. It was very difficult. We ran out of water, food. Local residents brought us humanitarian aid and water and gave us apples.
At one point, over 5,000 cars were lined up at the border and the situation was threatening to turn into a humanitarian catastrophe. 30-year-old teacher Julia decided to endure a long journey with her husband, also a teacher, to escape the realities of Putin's wartime Russia.
Now I'm pregnant and I don't want to be alone in this moment. We spent there 3 days, more than 3 days. We slept in a car. There were so many people.
In 2 weeks, over 68,000 people have entered Georgia amid rumors that Russia could close its borders to those eligible for mobilization. Some people say they had to wait 4 to 5 days to get to the border. Some were so desperate they abandoned their cars and tried to cross the border on foot or bicycles and scooters to bypass the large crowds and traffic jams. The Russian side of the border has become a mecca for corruption. Many were forced to bribe border guards to move further or buy pricey spots in cars lying near the checkpoints.
We were approaching the last checkpoint when we were told that we would definitely not be able to pass. They said we would need 250,000 rubles to get to North Ossetia. As soon as you enter the city, you'll have to go through several checkpoints and spend at least 30,000 rubles at each one of them. And I am telling you, people were giving out those bribes. You are stuck in a traffic jam and you see a bunch of locals are transporting people via the opposite lane and on the side of the road. You stand like this for an hour. You stand like this for 10 hours. You stand like this for a day. And then you realize you are standing still.
Partial mobilization means that any man aged 18 to 60 can get conscripted, so people are trying to cross the border fast. The situation is very tense on both sides of the mountain crossing. Some volunteers provide food and warm blankets at the border. Others provide information and free accommodation to those in need.
When we see so many people coming into Georgia, they have no idea about Georgia a lot. They have no idea even about occupation of Georgian territories by Russia. So my idea, and we initiated hotline immediately for these people not to move around the country with no information where they are and how people should act here. To help Georgia, actually, not only them, but to help Georgia not to have provocations and some risks.
While for Russians, Georgia is a safe haven, for many Georgians who support Ukraine, their arrival is a burden. The Georgian government is also yet to come up with a way to regulate the influx of people. Many do not welcome the arrival of citizens of the country that occupy 20% of their homeland. The unrecognized republics of Abkhazia and South Ossetia, which Georgia considers as territories, are still de facto governed by Moscow. The opposition calls the new wave of Russian migrants a, quote, threat to the national security, and demands a visa regime to control who can seek temporary refuge. Anti-Russian protests are held right at the border. Some even meet newly arriving people at Tbilisi airport with sarcastic "Hello Russian deserters" posters. However, Free Russia Foundation director Igor Koroptev believes Russians have nothing to worry about.
First of all of us and all newcomers should think about risks for Georgia, not for them. If they do not possess any risk for Georgia, they don't have any risks in Georgia.
According to some estimates, approximately 260,000 men left the country in the 4 days since Russia announced its first mobilization since World War II. As most European countries have already closed their borders to Russians, Georgia remains one of a few escape routes for those who do not wish to fight against Ukraine. Although the line at the border is slowly dying out, tensions between newly arriving Russians and local population are likely to get worse. Veronika Malinboym for I-24 News.